Life in diaspora definitely will change you. Many of us come back a lot different than when we left. And some of these changes can be really profound around the experience of fatherhood and just being a supportive spouse. And of course, these changes are expected to last for a while. When we come back, that really makes it difficult for us to transition back. Now, before I talk about what changes on our part as fathers or as male spouses, think about first what happens to female spouses after childbirth, the physical and the emotional changes that occur that many of us are completely unaware of. Based on what I've read, it looks like although many women are expected to quote unquote mostly recover between 8 to 6 weeks, it may often take way longer than that. And during that time, some women say that they feel like their bodies are actually almost fighting them. Now, the bottom line is giving birth is a major physical and emotional transforming event for women. But for our part as men or as male spouses in the role of caregivers, adjusting to life with an infant during postpartum really comes with profound responsibilities that, if we get it right, makes life really easy for the women we live with. Unfortunately, many men, myself included, got it wrong. And so I'm going to share this information hoping that the young men who are out there still kicking with the hopes of filling the earth can learn from our mistakes. And when you come back a much better person. So there are certain things that many of us are often unaware of, and maybe women might find this surprising. So today in this video, I want to speak with men. This is a men's topic, and hopefully this is something we can do for our next men's conference or bachelor's party. Because this is one conversation that I really wished I would have heard. I would at least listen to somebody talk about before I went into marriage. So come with me today. As you can tell, we are exploring Nairobi's newest freeway with the toll stations all over the place. It's beautiful, very smooth. Typically, we film from Karating, which is where we live in western part of Kenya. But today we're in Nairobi, which is the capital city of Kenya. So here's a list of things that we really had no idea about. So like I said, don't be shocked. Personally, I'm not in medicine. I'm just a regular African man who at least was taught to focus on helping with the kid, quote unquote helping. What I didn't realize is that as I focus on the kid, there's so many things I should have known about my wife that had I known at the time, I probably would have been a much more supportive husband. So again, like I said, I'm sharing this hoping that the young men who are still failing the earth can do better moving forward. So here are things that I recently just learned about, again, past having kids and all that, that it turns out that for women, the uterus is supposed to shrink back to its original size. And that sometimes may include massaging the stomach and all that. And it does come with cramps and bleeding and quite a bit of pain. I mean, I had no idea. Some people obviously knew, but not me. And then it turns out that women also have lots of hormonal shifts around this time. These hormones going off the charts, and they experience things like hot flashes, sweating more, hair loss, mood swings, headaches, things that are almost completely invisible to us men. And then you talk about breast engorgement, which comes with the tenderness and swelling. Again, and for some reason, I don't hear women talk about these things. And so we assume they're fine, but there's a lot that they're dealing with, including what they call postpartum preeclampsia, which has something to do with the high blood pressure. You can look it up. That's not my expertise, but this sounds like a very serious thing that could actually lead to death. And then all kinds of soreness in places everywhere that they feel pain, but somehow we don't see that. In fact, now that I'm looking back, I think I may have observed that, but I just wasn't paying attention because all of my focus was on the newborn. And then you're talking about swelling, extra fluids everywhere, fatigue, constipation when people are struggling with regular bowel movement. And then you have issues that come with C-section. You have the regular birth, and then you have C-section, which has its own set of challenges. including soreness on that area, which sometimes apparently lasts even a year after birth. That some of those incision lines can be tender much longer than anticipated. I really had no idea. And then you have issues of weight loss, because pretty much everybody gains weight. And one of the things I remember the most, again, is I hear this statement: I'm eating for two people. So if you're a young woman who has not had a baby, that statement is bad news. Let nobody cheat you that you're eating for two people. So typically it means anything goes, because certainly it catches up with people. And of course, the weight loss that we see for us men may not be a big deal, but apparently it does come with some psychological challenges that women have to navigate. And then when they start worrying about things that growing up in Africa were very normal, like stretch marks, and then of course extra skin here and there, they do come with psychological problems that most of us men are really completely oblivious of. Then the one thing that I knew about, but again, I don't think I was paying attention to, was postpartum depression. A lot of women apparently deal with this. And especially in diaspora, where many of the times after you come from the hospital, it's just the husband and the woman and the kid. It's very easy for our women to be depressed, and nobody really notices that until sometimes it's too late. So through all of this, again, I don't know enough. All I know is that as I read more, as I talk to women, I realize that I know I could have been a much more supportive spouse had I known just what it takes to recover and survive postpartum. Because, like, again, many of us, even when we do the men's congress, or they call it bachelor's party, we talk about so many things like finances, love, whatnot, so many things. But the one topic I have never heard folks talk about is how to be the most supportive husband or spouse postpartum. Especially folks going through the first baby, it's a world of its own. So here's some things that I've sort of picked up along the way. That number one, it's really important to figure out what really creates comfort for your spouse. And it could be so many things. One thing that works for one woman may not work for the next. For example, simple things like having a pillow in between somebody's leg when they are sleeping in a certain position, helping them be comfortable in bed when they're going to bed, or just sitting in the living room. Helping with that process, something as simple as that could really make a difference. And then things to do with even just warming water and helping them clean like wounds and things like that. Anything that increases the degree of comfort your wife needs really helps. Again, for me, my fault was that 99% of my focus was on the newborn. So I'm doing everything I can to make sure that the baby is fed, the baby is comfortable, the baby is warm and asleep. And for the most part, once all that is taken, I don't think I paid too much attention to my wife's comfort. So as a man now, looking back, I know I would have done a whole lot more in making sure that whatever would make my wife comfortable after birth, I would absolutely do it. So think about that. And that includes things like just bringing supplies like pads and medication and things like that. Of course, a lot of this is prepared before the baby comes, but sometimes more needs to be brought, especially when there's a lot more bleeding going on. You may need to bring supplies. So I really was not attuned to that until I realized there was times when my wife would need to leave the house when she didn't have to. So had I known, those things would have been so simple. I just take off, go bring what she needs, so she doesn't have to be hustling around to get some of the basic supplies. And of course, keeping an eye on things like constipation. Do you need to help with the diet to make sure that whatever you're eating does not make it even worse? Because I think I've heard too that epidural may have something to do with the constipation that women experience. But anyway, those in medicine can tell us more about that. Keeping an eye for signs of infection. Completely didn't know that, especially with the stitched areas. There are places that may not heal properly. And so as a spouse, if you're also helping her, keep an eye on that, because she might be in so much pain, she may not even notice that there are places that are not healing properly. So you want to help with that. If your spouse needs therapy, that is your job to help that happen, because oftentimes the people that need therapy are the least to realize they have a problem. Of course, with the cooking part, making sure that the nutritious food that is going to help your spouse heal, but also help her address some of the weight issues they're going to deal with, should be your part. I think for the most part, in my mind, when it came to food, I would cook, yes, but I didn't think about it in terms of cooking with the intention of helping my wife who is just had a baby. So for young men out there, please think about that part. Many of us are not afraid of cooking, but think about nutrition in terms of how do I do this in a way that helps my spouse. And of course, one thing that sometimes happens at this point is a little bit of infidelity. I'm pretty sure there's no good time for infidelity. But if you're going to cheat, this is probably one of the worst times to cheat. Again, when you think about all the things that your spouse is struggling with, and then you add cheating on top of it, this is probably the worst time to do that. And then, of course, one thing you want to learn about is the signs of preeclampsia. You remember the high blood pressure thing I mentioned earlier? I had no idea. So little things like maybe blurred vision or sensitivity, oversensitivity to light, swelling of the face, hands and limbs, rapid weight gain, something that is really out of the norm, or even shortness of breath. Keep an eye on things like that and act. Don't wait, act. To the best you can, please don't split duties 50-50. That, oh, I woke up at 3, now it's your time to wake up at 5. Don't do that. If you can do most of the heavy lifting, because physically, for men, we are fine at that point. It's the woman who is struggling. So please don't split duties 50-50. Do more as best as you can. And then, of course, when she is in pain, don't ever dismiss her. A lot of black women get dismissed with disastrous consequences. Many end up dying for things that could have been addressed earlier. So don't ever dismiss your wife when she's in pain. And of course, keep an eye on postpartum psychosis. Some women just lose their marbles. Keep an eye on that, and I hope we can all do better.